Welcome, everybody, to the Creative Side Chat. We haven't done these in a while. And you know what? If we're going to do it, we're going to bring in the big gun because we're going to have some fun, which usually means we're going to go off the rails and talk about art and then a billion other things that probably are unrelated to exactly what we're on the show for tonight. But it's all entertainment. So I am thrilled because this is a good friend of mine. And not only do I just love him as a human being, but he's brilliant. He's talented. Just the stuff that comes out of his head, you know, is so creative and it's an inspiration to me. And so tonight, while we are on we're about an hour away from each other and it's probably 98 degrees right now with a humidity of 100%, we are going to have a great time and kick this thing off right. So welcome to the Creative Side Chat with the legendary Fabio Napoleoni. My man, welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Fantastic introduction. I greatly appreciate you. For one, that introduction, and two, for being outside in this weather. So we may literally watch you lose pounds while we're having a conversation.
And you know what'll be the telltale sign is like right now it's kind of like I have a matte complexion. It's going to go high gloss and it's just going to be a sheen, and the lights will blind, and then I'll have to like pat myself down. But whatever, man, we're going to go for it.
It's crazy. It's hot. So hot.
It's hot.
Not fun.
No. So, hey, what I wanted to get to tonight is a whole bunch of things. And you know how we start these things out.
Yeah.
So, Scott Ryder, can you do me a favor? Can you go split screen on Fabio and I? Because I only see myself and nobody wants to see that. We want to get to the man himself. So, if we can do a split, that would be super. Or if we could go blank, one of the two. There we go. We'll do that. Oh my goodness. So hey man, I would like to know like what's on the menu for this evening as we start out.
Well, this event sort of was like a last minute. We have had a conversation with Scott prior to when we met a couple of months ago and had dinner with him here in Florida. We were just gonna try to go at a different approach instead of maybe, once a year, do the Comic-Con thing, and then just try to do maybe twice a year and see how that works out. So then we're basically focusing more on Chuck Jones individually, since the stuff that I create for them is just for them. So he reached out and said, "Hey, you have time in whatever month we're in now, May, I guess, yeah." So
yeah.
So he was like, "Hey, is there something we could do?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's put something together." And for the first time in 4 years, I have not had a children's book to work on. So typically this time of the year, for like 3.5 months, I was creating a children's book, but this time I wasn't. So then it gave me the ability to just create. So when he asked, I was like, sure, let me throw some ideas that I've been brewing on for a while. And then like always, they always shoot out a couple of concepts, or, they have Foghorn, do something with Foghorn and Ralph, and then Bugs, of course. And always Marvin. So I had Mike Dicken suggest something with Marcinivo and Marvin, which I'll get to that later. But that piece came. He's been requesting that for a while, and I never really put it together until this time. And I just thought, I think I nailed it with this one. This is probably my favorite out of the 9-10 pieces that I have. And then
you crushed it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the original next to me, my Ginger Rogers, which I'll go into details on that a little bit, why I called it that too. But yeah, I mean, it's if you want to start right off the bat, we can
well, let's do that. But let's start with what we're drinking. So
cool. Yeah.
So I would say I did not go like the 50-gallon margarita night because for obvious reasons. I did go tiki mug, so Tom Millsap, thank you. And I'm going margarita, and there's a lot of tequila in this, but I'm going margarita. It's quite delicious. And what I did want to say too, as we get to your drink here in a second, and what you're pouring down is, I there's you have a lot of originals. A lot of them have already sold, but for the remaining two or whatever that are left, I have 2 shots of Fireball, and I will pour a shot in this Batman shot glass each time one of those last two go. So things could get ridiculous fairly quick. What are you drinking, my friend?
Well, for the pregame, I have my coffee here. Trying to be with my favorite coffee, my little French bulldog on it.
Yeah.
And then I have my little hidden glass down here, which is it's a Jack Daniel's Sinatra 100. So I don't know when the bottle actually came out, but it's basically has a Sinatra little top hat, the his fedora and everything else. This is actually, I don't drink regular Jack Daniels, but this one is fantastic. Yeah, first time I had it was in Las Vegas at the restaurant named after Frank, and I begged the guy to give me one of the glasses because they don't sell them. So I begged and I begged and I begged, and then I had to show him my leg, and then he gave me the glass. So those of you that have ever seen the backside of my right leg, you'll just a beautiful Frank Sinatra done by OG Tattoos right here in Orlando. So
I have seen the backside of your leg, and that's a story for another time. Go ahead, continue.
Yeah. So then, and then water to finish the night off with. Sure. Unless that right there, so I can just refill it.
Well, you know what? So friends, if when you're watching and you're pouring yourself something, cheers. Welcome to the show. Cheers, my friend. Yeah, we gotta. Thank you very much. Thank you. Delicious. All right, now for the creativity. So I love the mashups that you do. You know that, like you have a way of just brilliantly creating things with your characters, mashing up Looney Tunes into it. And this selection is off the charts because you did stuff specific. And I think you're starting with the Foghorn Leghorn one. It like when you showed that to me, you're like, "Hey man, I did this," and I'm like, that makes sense. Why haven't you done this before? Like, yes, like the chickens and Foghorn, like that. Yeah. So like just all that stuff that rolls into it. We'll get into the Marvin one and stuff too. But man, you just crushed it with the mashups this time, and the pen and inks are freaking phenomenal. So I'm gonna let you start off a little bit with what went into that, and how you went through was what you were thinking, because the ideas were flowing. Scott Ryder, we're at number 8. If you want to take that, and Fabio, you can hold up and talk a little bit about that piece.
Yeah. So it's I started doing this thing this year, and the sad part is, and I know you can relate to this too. Our brains never stop working, like constantly. It's a blessing, and at the same time, it's a horrible thing to always be. You try to enjoy a movie, and you're like, oh my god, and then you just there it is, And I'm sure your wife probably hates it as much as mine does. Yeah. You're like, where are you going? Also, I have to write something down, and then you're gone 45 minutes. So,
I just got to thumbnail this thing. I got to thumbnail it. Just
exactly.
Give me a minute.
Really quick. And but I think of these things, and I write myself. Well, you've been in my mess that I have in there, and there's stuff everywhere. And I bump into little post-it notes that I've written, just something simple or silly, but this is one that I have the ambitious chicken's never been in a Foghorn. It didn't make it. You know what I mean? It's like it's taken me. I've been with Chuck Jones for 14 years. This is the first one, so it just doesn't. So we're not chicken is. So we're not chicken. We have these 3 little ambitious chickens on here. And it's sort of like one is asking why are you taking him? And you can clearly see the one in the middle has got knuckling up, like this is going to go down, Yes. There it is. You see the middle one is like, you put him down. The other one's asking why, but the one in the middle is ready to throw some knuckle. Yeah, and in the background too is like I typically do very, straightforward backgrounds, but this one and just looking over the stuff that was done on the originals for Foghorn, I was like, let's put a fence in there and a tree that looks good had apples in it, but they're just little hearts. Yeah, and then Henry, they're just carrying him off. Yeah, this I did this piece and it just made me laugh, and then throw in the little accents of red in there too.
Yes.
Notice there is no big red heart like there typically is in my pieces. This one I put it into the trees, but then use the highlights because all of them have, there's a red that they all have in common. So I just threw that in that piece instead.
Well, I love the I love the whole composition of the piece, and I thought what you did with the background and just it's not like it's got depth to it right off the bat with what you did with the fence, and you created something like super dimensional, like in a very concise way, and I love that. And when you even look back into your tree, it's like everything just flows on this piece, and it's freaking hilarious. And the whole time I thought about like the middle chicken is gonna straight up cold cock, the chicken hawk, and he just. I would like to see that fight. I'm not gonna lie. I would pay money for that, and I'm gonna put money on the ambitious chicken and not on the chicken hawk.
Well, it's the funny thing is you just draw these things, and I'm thinking to myself, like I've never drawn multiple ambitious chickens either. It's always been just one. So to have the one that clearly is kind of like what are you doing? Let's work this out. You put them down or whatever, but then one of the three is not having any of it, and it's just we all know people like that. You put three. Yeah. It's one person's passive, one person's like, oh, we can work this out, and another one's like, I know how to solve this problem.
real quick, yes. Like that right there, like that scene is, I'm gonna say, like that is the night out scene, right? I know, because you didn't designate daytime or nighttime, right? It's just kind of like a scene there, and I'm like, that to me was back in the day at the club, dude, right? And them ambitious chickens, like we're not. So yeah, I totally get it, because you got the one dude that's like, man, we can work this out, and the other one that's like, we're gonna get thrown out of this place in about 5 seconds because here it goes. So that, like, I got that vibe a little bit from it, like right off the bat, and I was like, this is freaking brilliant. That's why I loved it. Like it was, you had never put him together with Foghorn, and then just how you did it and pulled it off. I'm like, man, there's so many connotations to this. I'm like, I'm gonna go club scene on this, and yeah, it's getting thrown down. So brilliant job.
Awesome, thank you, Sarah. And then all right, so we'll go into the Unicorn Ranch. That's okay. So not much last season, but I've enjoyed watching Yellowstone. So one day, just again, you're doing one of these things, and we're driving, and I said to Nicole, I was like, I wonder if anybody's put together Yogi and his girlfriend, but it's Jellystone, and then turned it into like a unicorn ranch instead of horses. And I'm thinking, like, somebody must have done that. Somebody must have done it. There's no way. Like somebody's, you think like, oh, someone's made that. So I Googled, and I Googled, and I was like, no one's thought of Jellystone, like the Unicorn Ranch, and had Yogi dressed, you know what I mean, like ripped. And I can't remember his girlfriend's name escapes me, but Beth. And I'm thinking, like, why isn't it what? So I did it. I put the suit, rips,
Yes, number
jacket,
4, Scott.
Hat, the belt buckle, the boots, and then of course Beth is wearing her little famous type sundress, and she of course has a martini in her hand. and then I had to stick in a goofy Carly in the background, just like tongue hanging out. I had to. I laughed. Mentioned it to Scott during a conversation with him and Mike, and he was like, "Yeah, just do it." Yeah. So then I doodled it, and this is another one too. It just made me laugh.
It made perfect sense. Like I loved it, and I'll tell you, as someone who hasn't watched Yellowstone but seen some stuff, I got it right away. Like the whole setup, I knew enough to know enough, and this thing was freaking brilliant. And I don't
Yes.
think you said you haven't done yogi. Like, have you done them at all?
Uh,
No, you did. Yeah, but like rare, right?
yeah, it's not very often. And at some point, I'm going to have to paint him too because I have some other ideas for him that are kind of funny. Based again on the park and the whole cowboy theme and everything else. But yeah, I haven't done. I think pen and ink, yes. Oh no, no, I haven't done paint. Scooby was the one that just popped into my head for a second, but no. Yeah, this one is it's too funny. Like goofy.
It's one of those things that as soon as it hits you, and you're like, why didn't? Yeah, and then get it done now.
Uh,
I
so
love
it's
it.
I wrote it down. I want to say maybe it's on the drive to Maine in July last year that I came up. I had a bunch of ideas, and because I had to do all the work for last year's Comic Con when I was in Maine, and Maine is not studio friendly. I had to sit at a kitchen table, and then I had to use my father-in-law's workbench in his basement to paint the pieces that I did last year.
Oh,
So,
I remember that.
and I took every light in the shop because I like it super bright. I like when I paint, there's no shadow. Like you can't see my hands, like that type of brightness. I'll probably burn my retinas by the time I'm 60, but I took lights from everywhere in the house and basically in the basement and just put them here, and then it was hot. And in Maine, they don't have AC, so I had a fan going, and I was like, this is a lot. It's a lot to do. The stuff that we go through, Ben,
Suffer. I mean, I'm out here right now glistening for you. just to let you know. Yeah,
Brutal.
it is. All right. So
Right.
I got to ask you then. You're
Sure.
writing stuff down. Do you write down and thumbnail? Do you find yourself doing that, or is it something that you can be as descriptive as you need to in the write down, or do you just thumbnail and then you kind of remember what it is?
The sad part is, I think when I was younger, I could just write it and it would pop into my noggin. But as now, writing 2 or 3 words and something that looks like a box with a hole and 2 legs coming out of it will go, oh, Marcinibo climbing a mountain. And look, you know what I mean?
Yep.
It's the words and then the small, thumbnail doodle that will get me going. But I have to draw something because the words themselves just they're not. I'll go in a different direction.
No, yeah, I do the same thing. I've got to write down and thumbnail, or else it just doesn't work.
Yep. Crazy.
All right, so.
Crazy. All right. We'll do double dog dare is the next one.
Yes. All right, so number 1, Scott.
All right. So I Underdog as a kid. I remember watching those cartoons, loving them, and then you see them today, and they're just so. In comparison to what's available today, it was the same building as he's flying, the same building going in the background. You know what I mean? There was no multiple buildings or different angles. It was just so. As I was thinking, the thing behind this is every great superhero always has a sidekick, and Underdog does not. So I was like, what terminology that describes a dog? And I started looking at things, and I wanted to use my French bulldog in this piece. So then I Googled Nemesis because I probably haven't seen an episode of Underdog in 40 years. So I Googled it, and then I was like, oh, double dog dare you. I double dog dare you to do it. And then so I thought, how cool would it be? So a little French bulldog, that is his name. He is Triple D's, double dog dare you. And he is like the Robin to Batman. He's a double dog. That's it. So yeah.
Yes, and after working on an animation piece right now for another studio, and going through budgets, I can totally understand why it was the same exact building every time. Because let me tell you, the money's got to go somewhere.
Yeah.
So I love what you pulled off with the background. There was a design to those cartoons that I thought was kind of brilliant, and what I really enjoyed about those. And I thought you captured that, like, just you nailed it with this. And they kept it simple, but in their simplicity, I go back to Maurice Noble, like, don't overcomplicate things. And man, you pulled it off. You pulled it off brilliant. So I love this.
Exactly. Thank you. And that's that's a funny thing too, because I think the same way. I think some of the reason some of those cartoons are still like they resonate is it is this simplicity. And it's like with anything in time, for instance, like Keith Haring. Keith Haring's artwork's really simple. It's a man that was able to draw an entire human being and never lift the marker or the brush off the canvas or wall or whatever he was doing. He would start and just do the whole thing. And primary colors and the simplicity behind it is something that 25 years later, 30 years after his death, it still resonates. Every artist comes around. The same thing with Basquiat and all these great guys come in. I think it's the same thing with these cartoons. And you see them now being used by kids in memes and just little references in TikTok and things like that, which I think is it's super cool. That the kids that are using TikTok, their parents were literally in their maybe younger than 10 years old watching these cartoons.
Mm-hmm.
When I watched them, I believe they were already reruns when I was a young kid. Because I think they were late 60s, early 70s, and I was born in 72. Yep. So that's the funny part. And you're right, the simplicity of it is great. Your sole focus is the main character, underdog, and the villains, and the backgrounds are always usually one color, and then you could tell there was a building or
Yep.
They were the sole focus. Today you can easily get lost in all the backgrounds. So that's I love it. Just love it.
Yeah, well, and to do that, I mean, that as well in art, where's the eye going? Well, like, what do you want people to see, right? And if it's too much to digest visually, it just kind of gets lost. So that's what I love about how you pull things off, is you still give the essence and the spirit of all that, but your designs nail it so that it complements the rest of the piece and all the action going on in the foreground.
Yeah, it's a fun piece, man.
I loved it. Yes, it's brilliant. So we've got this one, and we go underdog. Now, where are you taking us next?
This one is all right. We'll do Porky Primetime.
Porky Primetime. All right. So Scott, hold on one second. I'm just checking where we have the number 6, Scott. All right. So Porky Primetime. I'm not going to give away the thing. You go ahead and explain it first, and then why Porky really needs to like stand alone on its own on this one. You go for it.
So, first of all, the inspiration for him is Angus Young. So and I just thought, how awesome would it be if you think of Angus Young and the way he's stomping across, you know what I mean? And he's but if Porky Pig was doing that and then doing the stuttering at the you know what I mean? There's something about Angus Young comes out with like the marching but I just saw it. And I thought, how perfect would that be to put him in that suit with the little boy cap but just completely rocking it, because Porky Pig is so very like gentle, and to be Angus Young is not.
No.
And
if you go through, keep going. Yes.
Yeah. So then so in this piece, then you have Mr. Kevin Bacon there in the corner. Like, he is just with his Anarchy t-shirt. He's like, listen, I'm not gonna play. This is you got this. This is like, if I try to do anything at this point, this is not gonna work. I'm gonna look foolish. This is like heavy rock and roll versus punk. And, you know, and then punk is basically almost like three chords, just rocking all
Yeah.
the time. Where he's skilled. He's a skilled prime piglet there. So I did that, and then the little amplifier on top is, I believe it's orange. It's my son actually. It's his actual amplifier that he has that he uses.
That's awesome.
So I took that little orange. I found it, and then I snuck it in there. And then of course my little tribute to Keith Haring on Kevin's guitar, and I just thought, yeah, I just laughed creating this piece because it's just, how cool would it be if that right there, if you could just see Porky Pig, just like, you know, the very sort of meek kind of, and then as soon as he gets that guitar, puts that hat on, just completely transforms into, you know,
So you know what? You know what's funny is when I first saw this piece, the first thing I thought of that went to my head is like he starts rocking out, and I realized he's on the guitar, right? But let's just say he's going to do the whole thing and he's going to sing, right? And the only thing I could hear in my head was back in black, right? And I'm like, I can hear that. You know, he's got to stutter in something, and if you're going to do it, that's the lyric to do it on.
Yeah, it's just funny. I'm like, oh, this thing would be, if I would have had time to paint one of them, that probably would have been it, because the pink of his skin with a rich velvety purple would just look fantastic.
I'm not saying that you should not do that. You know, like, I'm just encouraging and saying, like, if you find some time, that probably should happen.
Yeah, it would be cool. That would definitely be a cool one.
If you get the itch.
Yeah, it's one of those. Well, it's one of the pieces here that I did as a pen and ink. The concept for this piece was 2 years ago. So
really,
yeah, it's a 2021 or 22 maybe. Yeah. So it's been sitting. The rough idea, like the thumbnail, well, just, you know, quick tree, the clock, and everything else that was in there was just like, you know, I would do a very crude character and then write what the character was. So then I would remember, I'm like, oh. And then in coming up with stuff like this, I was going through my iPad, I was like, oh my God, yes, I needed to do this. So, all right. So we'll get to, let me see, we'll do this one too. Actually, we'll wait for this one till we get down here, so then it goes with that. All right, so next one is, I'm a hugger, brother. And
I need number 7, please, Mr. Scott. All right, buddy, you're up.
All right, so I'm also a fan of Huckleberry Hound. I did, it's an original that hangs literally across from yours as you enter the Sinatra room here. You've been in here, so you know where yours is. This one hangs across from it. So I had a couple ideas for this concept of Buckaroo's Hound meeting Huckleberry Hound, and Huckleberry Hound thinking they're relatives. Because they have the same last name.
Yes.
So, and the whole concept of, you know, his bottle is empty, his glass is empty, but you know, it's giving you the impression that he may have been there for a while before Bunny goes to his regular bar and bumps into this gentleman across from him, who now is super friendly. He doesn't shake hands. He hugs.
No. Yes, he does. And like the heavy eyelids and that tip of the hat is what does it.
Yeah.
Because, you know, like, going back to the Ambitious Chickens bar scene, right? That's still going on. That fight's happening on the other side of the bar. On this one, on this one, we have a super happy hound who's just full of love, and he's gonna just share it with everybody.
Yeah, I'll tell you so this piece, whoever gets this piece, there's two titles on the back of this piece. There's two titles here, and literally I was doing it and drawing it, and I was like, nah, you know what? I'm a hugger, brother. But the other one was like, no. And so I'm a hugger. Did you see it? So yes. I'm a hugger is from the perspective of Huckleberry, but then the other title is the perspective of Bunny is like, no relations.
Yes.
So
I'm gonna take a guess that Huckleberry was on tequila, because that'll usually put you in the mood.
So yeah, these are fun. Of course, I smoke cigars. So there's a cigar in here, the martini with the carrot in it. You know, that's typical. And then I sort of a lot of the characters that I have a specific scene they're always in. But Bunny Boostown, over the last couple of years, I put him in just in bar scenes where, you know, he's chatty Cathy next to him, or the bartender is, you know, giving him some advice and things like that. So concept of doing that came to me shortly after my mom passed. Her second husband used to draw this turtle, and he called it Turtle Blues. And it was always a turtle who was a doctor. You know, he always had the stethoscope on, and he was sitting at a bar, which I don't know how healthy that is for a doctor to be leaving his shift and then goes, you know. But that always I thought that, and I was like, because I bumped, as you know, fortunately you go through your parents' stuff, and my mother had a bunch of his drawings, and I was like, that's a great, because I already had put him in bar scenes, but to have a steady flow of the people that you run across, you know, whether it's the waitress or the person sitting next to you, or just another patron at sitting at the bar. So that's where all these Bunny Boostown pieces have been all geared for the past almost 3 years now.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's a funny
I gotta say, like, I mean, we've all been hanging out and whatever. You go to the places, and sure enough, everybody knows a Huckleberry. You know, if we could go back to Tombstone, right, and the little Val Kilmer, you know, I'm your Huckleberry. Yeah, that. Pretty much. So yeah, I got it.
Funny. All right, let me see. We'll go to. Oh, you can't take your work home.
Yes. So I need number 5, Mr. Scott. Thank you, sir. All right. You can't take your work home. So
yeah, you can't take work home. So I won't say, but I shared this image with a couple of friends, and some were like, "Oh, that's cute," but yeah, you're right. You can't take your work home, and then it goes to like completely different path than what this means. And then I sent it to another friend who's very witty, and he is like, "That's clever." that's a clever piece because they clock in. You know, they clock in, but now he's trying to take his work home. You know, his job is to try to steal them from 9 to 5, but now he wants to take it home with him. These, you know, Marcinivo, and they're trying to stop him from doing that. This was a concept that I had 2 or 3 years ago, and I drew it very, very crudely. I did a limited for, maybe it wasn't 20, maybe it was 22, but I did a limited where he has him right by the throat. And Marcinivo is in between them, you know, trying to break up the fight.
Yep.
This was a concept then that I wanted to do, but I didn't get to paint it because I wanted to paint it like this. You know, not tiny, but I wanted to paint it large, because I love the way the trees were done in the original cartoon, the bold colors in the background, that stuff to me is just, it's amazing. Again, it goes back to focusing more on the characters, but the color palette of that time, you know, with like that wormwood blues and the little oranges and teals and things like that, very bold, rich colors that appeal to me, and I wanted to paint it that way. But yeah, you can't take your work home. It's just the.
So when
Go ahead.
you know, like I love like Maurice Noble, you know, Philip Dugard, how they design backgrounds and stuff. And this was another one of those where, like I love the tree and I love the clock just coming off 3-dimensionally, right?
Yeah.
So kind of like what you did, you know, with the Ambitious Chickens and Foghorn Leghorn. And this was another one that you have enough of that background design, and then something just kind of pops out at you and gives it like that extra piece. So I loved it.
Yeah, it's fun. The smile on the sheep, just like, oh, thank God.
Right?
You know,
Yeah,
and
you won't be lamb chops tonight.
exactly. It's just a cool piece. And then I'm trying to think if there's anything else in here that I threw in there. No, I think that's pretty much it. And then also the shape of the leaves too. For some reason, it just reminded me of like stars. Some of them do.
Yes, yes.
And it's yeah. There's just so many little things in here too, and the background's not too complex. Only the main characters in the tree are very bold. They have the bold outlines. You know, it's just
Well, you frame the characters really well, so that, you know, again, it's not complex, right? And where you're just kind of, your eyes are glazing it over, and I totally dig that because I love your design style.
But it worked out. I mean, it's you know, it's I'm sure you know this. It's, you look at it, and again, it's, you know, the fact that I get to do this. You know, I get to play around with these characters, and I get to move them, and you know, it's the ability to move just a little bit of the clock this way, or you know, make a fist, or whatever it is with these guys. And the fact that I'm able to do this, and then we have this conversation, is something that, again, as a kid, I used to trace these things and you know, do coloring books and all that, and then just sit here and have a conversation about me inserting my character into their world. You know what I mean? It's kind of still, it's a surreal thing. This is what you do, you know?
Well, you know, and I think too, what, like for me, what I geek out, you know, on your behalf for, is that everything that you created in your own world, right, just fits. Like you've got some, it almost, you got inspiration from Chuck. There's some stuff in there and you can see it. And then your characters blend so well in the worlds with the attitudes and the you know, just the action and stuff going on with the Looney Tunes characters, that it's kind of a no-brainer, right? And then it's endless stories and ideas and concepts of things that are happening that you get to blend your stuff with as they now play. You know, like I would say, like the Looney Tunes are playing in your world and not the opposite. So that's what I would say.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, it's just something I never thought. It's just the funniest thing, you know, when Scott asks and do this, and then it automatically just pops into my brain. I start thinking of ideas, and then God bless you, because then I think of like, oh, what clip am I thinking of? You know, from a kid. And I'm like, where he's walking, but he's got the sheep in his hand. And then you look, and that's happened a couple of times, you know, in different angles. And he's at one of the cliff, he's at the other cliff. And I'm like, oh, I love the way he's got his fist out like this in this one. Or he looks mad, but that's not that scene. You know, it's completely different. And I'm like, okay, so I'm going to take this from here. But then looking at your stuff, too, you do the same thing. You take the Wile E. Coyote and the bat. In the bat suit. You know, we talked about that. Yeah, it's just that concept of them being, you know, on top of it. It's like, why hasn't someone thought of that? You know what I mean?
Right?
You're just like, and now it's yours forever. Anybody else take the concept, you're like, You stole that.
Yeah, be like, you need to go think of something else. Like, I got this. Well, and you know what's awesome about that too is the fact, and this is what I loved about the whole Chuck Jones gallery crew, is they literally, to the audience watching, as you will know, they literally just go like think of something, and with other IPs, and we won't say who they are, right?
Yeah.
Things get very difficult and very picky and very controlled, and just everything has like, and they just suck the creativity out. These guys are the exact opposite, where it's like, we're playing with Chuck's characters, in these kind of things and these scenarios, and where all the inspiration off the films, and Chuck's whole philosophy on creativity, and not being close-fisted about stuff, and that's how they let us do that. It's an open hand, and then we just get to go nuts and do these things. So you're putting Mars and Evo in, or the Ambitious Chickens in with Foghorn Leghorn. I get to paint Batsuit Wile E. Coyote and an Alex Ross homage, or whatever else it might be, and we just get to go nuts with it.
Yeah, it is one of the coolest things, and I've always the conversation I had with Mike and Scott a couple months ago, and I was like, I'd like to try something that does not include my main characters in it, and just let me do my twist on these characters. I said I have an idea in mind, and like with no hesitation, they're like, yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd like to do underdog. Yeah, well, we can do that. Let's, like to try this and try that. And they're like, basically, it's, listen, can you throw this character and this character in it?
Right.
How you paint it, how you draw it, and then from there, and I think it's a brilliant way of maintaining and keeping things going too. When you add fresh art and style to it, that the characters will just be there. And you're 100% correct about the other. It'll be like Voldemort. You can't say their name.
No, we can't.
They even dictate colors. There's specific colors.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And let's get just as stupid on what they also do, and what I love about when we're doing concepts, and we're just throwing stuff, like we're putting things together. We put all the thought stuff in. We're like, all right, and we send that stuff off. We get like back our feedback and stuff on it. And then once we're locked in, and we're like, yep, this is great, go for it. And then we just do the piece, right? And then we're done. And then the piece is done, and here it is. And some of those other IPs, we won't name who, right? Baltimore, we can't say their name, right? We'll approve a concept, and then you'll do the piece. It's finished, and then they will have you redo something because this is 10% smaller than what it really should be, in our opinion. Excuse me? Yeah. And then you have to repaint that part. I'm going to say no to that. No, thank you. This is the world I like to play in. Yeah, nuts. So, Chuck Jones.
Yeah. So, I won't say I had a similar experience, not with Voldemort, but with another. So, I was asked to do a specific character, and I did that character. And I'm like, all right. So I'm, the ear is this, that, laid it out. Painted it and sent it off. Well, this is not, the nose is not correct. And I'm like, oh, okay. So then, and this is not correct, and this is not correct, and his body length is not correct. And I'm like, man, you're like, oh, that looked pretty good. So then I submitted something else, and the same thing, a different painting, the same thing. And I'm like, what am I missing? Like, you start questioning yourself. You know what I mean? You're like,
yeah.
Okay, I get it, but so I did a very a-hole-ish thing. So I have a book right over there, and it's all based on 50 to 53, 1950, 1953 of this character. And I literally traced the character, because I wanted to test that individual's authenticity to their knowledge of that character. So that came back, and they're like, well, the nose is not right, and then you're getting closer. So
No,
then you
no.
listen. So then I followed up with an email of the piece where I took it from. There were no more questions after that. And then I painted it, and yeah, and then there's more to that story down the road. But
and you're like, from page 52 of your character style guide that you published in 1952, this is the character that I'm taking.
That was pretty much it. And he was like true to size, everything from that. The background was 100% mine. And then I was like, okay, well, explain this to me. And then that was that. So
that's ridiculous.
Yeah, funny stuff. Like, how did you land this job?
Well, and that's what I've always loved about working with these guys. Because how long have you been working with Chuck Jones now?
I think 2010. I think I was the first. I went to my solo show there, and then for Chuck's 100th, that's when I started doing the Chuck mashups of my stuff from that point on. And then I think we're at 15 or 16 now, something like that.
Yeah. So I was there at Chuck's 100th, and it was amazing. And so I was gonna say you got some history. Like, this isn't something that's like a short-term thing. I'm in it like 10 years right now. I think I've hit my 10-year mark because I was 2014. And what I've appreciated, and I'm obviously you're still here working with them, so you are the same, is that whole collaborative thing, and then just that they imbue the creativity in what they set forth, and then we're allowed to just kind of go nuts. And so I've never felt constrained or restricted. Any notes that I've given have always been constructive. And there was only one time when it came back with we're not going to do this one. And you want to know what it was? Yeah. So let me ask you first. Have you ever had that happen to you?
Oh man, I got it both from Nikki and Scott, because I did the Chase is Over, where there's a big heart, and then there's Pepe Le Pew. I was so stoked. They're like, the chase is over. Like, yeah, he caught the big heart. Nikki's like, but what if the cat was in there? And I was like, Penelope was in there. What if she was in there? I'm like, no, you're missing it. You're missing it. She doesn't need to be in there. It's the heart. Send it off to Scott. Scott's like, can you add?
Right.
And the worst part is, I printed about, in anticipation of it, I printed about 20 or 25 of them without her in it.
No way. That's awesome.
In the drawer in the studio. So there's the original with Penelope, because I had to add her in, and then I have about 20 or 25 where she's not in it at all.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
So I had this idea, right? And 50 Shades of Grey had just come out. And I haven't read, and I haven't read the book. I haven't watched the movies. I don't really care. But I had this idea, right? And it was Bugs Bunny with a suit on, facing out the window, like whatever the cover of the thing was, right? And he had a blindfold in his pocket. All right, we all know what that was for. And right, and it was in the stripy style that I did, and I called it 50 Hairs of Grey. And I was going to use 50 Shades of Grey in this painting, right? Mm-hmm. So like that was the whole thing. And and so that came back with I don't think we're going to do this way. Like, I'll come up with something else. So they are telling me that we're only supposed to be an hour, and I think we have like a whole bunch of more. They should know this by now, by the way. But we'll be as respectful as we can. So they just told me happy medium, and I said 3 hours, and they said no. And so let's wait. I'm gonna get a text from Scott that's like, could you get back on the thing? I'm like, no, we got it, man. So I'm gonna let you roll the net. Like, where do you want to go next?
All right, we're gonna go to the Rabbit Hole Bar and Grill.
Yes, number 3, Mr. Scott. dude. So when you first showed me the piece, and I'm like, it was another one of those things that like, this doesn't seem possible that you haven't done this yet, like
Yeah.
that it's just now coming out, and it's freaking brilliant. And my son used to play rabbits, right? So
Oh,
that
yeah.
whole game, oh my gosh. And when you threw that in there, I'm like,
Yeah.
come on.
It's the one that gets it for me is the thumper.
Yep.
In the middle, just sipping away a little champagne glass as he's like taking it all in. And then Bugs' face, like it, like he might have been the first one at the bar and just wanted his cocktail, maybe wanted to be quiet, and then all these loud mouths,
yes,
come into it. Because when you look at these, the tricks, Bunny and Roger, they're so loud, obnoxious, and it's just, to me, the conversation that Bunny might be having with the tricks rabbit, how like he's trying to explain whatever he's saying, that rabbit is just so over the top excited, and the rabbit, and then the one from Alice in Wonderland.
Yes.
Scheming. There's a scheme happening there, and it's there's if this could be animated and the conversation just be loud and crazy, but it would just be that was the thing that I was going for. I also drew this, I think, years ago. I did it on my iPad, and I've been asked multiple times when I was going to put it on paper, and someone asked us, like, can you put it on a 7x11 so it's affordable? I was like, well, that wouldn't be doing any justice to the characters, because you can't squeeze that many in a space like that. So it is the size of 2, but it needed to be so then all the details could be seen on these guys. This is another one too that I would love to paint, but then it would have to be, it would just stay as an original. You would make no money after you pay everybody.
No, you would not. You're like, yo, man, here's your 50. You couldn't buy a box of tricks with what you got after that. That's how little you would get. Yeah.
So it's a fun piece. I love it.
I loved it when you showed it to me and you sent it over. It was just freaking brilliant, and I was cracking up at everything that you put in there. And I'm like, yeah, that needed to happen. So, all right, you got 2 more pen and inks.
Yeah, and then we have, it's called the Home Field Advantage.
And like, how do you?
So
there's like a grand slam home run, and this is like putting 2 guys on each base and knocking it out of the park, and with a pinch hitter, right? And you just scored 8 runs in 1 hit. So continue, please.
Yeah, so we'll start off with the background. The background is 100% right off Marvin's world. That's where the home field advantage. That's why he's saying that very like, shut your mouth to Marcinivo, who may be whispering or talking under his breath, at him. This is the world that he's in. I had to sneak in. I escaped the character's name, but there's a little nemesis in the background there.
Yes.
Behind
the instant Martians. The instant Martians.
Yeah. So I had to throw that in there. As there could be something, rigging going on here with the little rockets that are smoking a little bit. But Marcinivo is dressed like an X-Wing fighter.
Yes.
So I had to, in thinking of how these guys would look, I thought, I'm going to mash up Star Wars, Marcinivo, human beings, and then Marvin. And Mike Dicken has been asking me for years to put these guys on tricycles.
Yes.
And like, you know what? They're having a race. So that's where the race is, where it is. The moon man, the astronaut, he's the only one still affected by gravity, which is, I just thought it was funny too, because Marcin Evo was like, not neither. So he's trying to get a hold of the bike before the thing takes off, and he's tethered to it so he doesn't fly off. And and by this time, humanity has gotten stupider, and Earth is Earth.
Earth, yes.
Because we don't spell anything anymore. We just sound out. So no, it's no longer Earth. It's just Earth. And the red line, of course, has a little bit of a lead to it. And that's where he's correcting Marcin Evo and saying, listen, this is called the home field advantage.
Yes.
That's what gets that loop ahead of everybody else. And then on top of that, he also has rockets. So there's a bunch of multiple little things. The thing, there's one heart in this piece, and it is on Earth. And when you get this piece, it is located in Orlando, Florida. I
see it. Yes, it is. Freaking brilliant. Yeah, dude, this, I mean, obviously, I'm a huge Marvin the Martian fan. And I love the X trees, you know, and everything to put in from like the whole Planet X influence. So, yeah, it's just, I saw it for the first time and it was already sold by the time I saw it, I'm pretty sure. But you showed me like a sneak peek of some stuff, and I'm like, man, like you continue to crush it with this whole Marvin series, and I just love it. So like the concept was brilliant, the mashup was brilliant, the size of the piece is freaking brilliant. Like this isn't something that you could have done any smaller. It really isn't.
No, it's I thought about it, and for them to be, well, the red line, for instance, it had to be like that. And that's where the concept started, was the line of it being a head. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. For him, a head. And then that was the first thing I had in mind. I'm like, oh, that's kind of funny. He drew the line, clearly.
Yeah.
You know, and then so that's how I started. And the beauty, again, of working with iPads and digital is you're able to move the characters to the point where you're like, shit, I see it. You know, you know, so that's this is killer, and I think it's 22 by 15 or something like that. It's probably the largest grenade that I think I've done.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love it. The whole piece is brilliant. The composition is brilliant. I love the characters in there. All right, so we're rolling through, and
just a quick.
Yeah.
These are the little freebies that you're going to get with any purchase of the whether it's an original or a limited or anything. If you purchase through the event, let them know to make sure that this is Wolverine back from, man, I want to say a decade ago. I did this for Comic-Con. And then this is actually the original that sits across from Ben's original in my little room here. I call it my Sinatra room. So this sits right across from Ben, right there as you enter the room. So I think I showed it to Scott and Mike, and Scott was like, "That's amazing." I think he asked me if it was for sale, and I was like, "No." So so these two, I believe this one's 4x6, and I think this one's 5x6. They're pretty big. Awesome. They're a little bigger than your standard size stuff. And then we're down to these two. And this concept, this is the original concept. It is my Fred Astaire. And some people might know who Fred Astaire is, and some people might not. So Fred Astaire was a 40s and 50s dancer, and he had a partner. And they were world famous. They were just icons to musicals and dancing movies that was the in vogue thing to do back in that time. And they were just, I can't think of a pair of actors today that do movies together that are over the top successful like Fred and Ginger. So this is the original concept I had, which is just like they're coming down, you know, into the dungeon where Frankenstein is made. This is the piece that I had asked Scott that I was just going to work with the Doc Opera piece which is just that in itself is just an iconic image of, you know, Bugs Bunny and the hat with the little braids, little blonde braids. And it just, I did this piece for Halloween last year. So in the month of October, while you're a maniac doing something every day for a month, I'm like, once a week is good. I'm like, this guy's insane. I'm like, once a week is good. So
yeah.
this last year, I was like, this is the concept I had along with the Peanuts character, a zombie Charlie Brown. So I had done this piece, and then when I was thinking of doing an exclusive, I thought, you know what, I'm gonna do this piece because I was like, you're feeling it, you know what I mean? I'm like, I have the colors in mind, I think what I want to do. So this piece is called My Fred Astaire because it's a background is different. Pretty much the characters are the same as the original here, and then the original is called My Ginger Rogers. So in this one here, it's from Bugs Bunny's He's My Fred Astaire, and here is Bugs is My Ginger Rogers, because they're performing the perfect dance.
Yes.
So that's and the color on well, you can see it. It's just I had to incorporate the one yellow eye from Dragon Boy into Bugs, and that I believe the blue, it's like a bluish green. I believe it's called Wormwood. That's that's like that 50s style. It's just a beautiful color. It went great, light blue and the purple in the mountains. And the reason the mountains are purple, I was at Ocean Blue in Winter Park, and there was a Chagall painting, a very political painting. And as I was looking at it, the consultant there was asking me, oh, what do you see in it? What do you see in it? And I said, well, for one, Purple Mountain's majesty. And she was like, Purple Mountains? And like that, I'm like, the first thing I saw, you know, in the piece, which is fantastic. So as I was creating these and trying to think of something, I was like, I'm going to throw some Purple Mountains in there. So that's where that comes in. But I loved Elmer Fudd's face, the little crinkles in his mouth. Opposed to the dot in his eyes, they're the X's. So then that's my sort of tributes a little bit to Marcinevo, Dragon Boys there. Even though they're not, there's nothing really in there that says Marcinevo or Dragon Boy, but the style of the art, the stitches all through, Bugs. You know, the heart clearly is demolished. You know, that's pieced together just like Frankenstein is too. The difference between this is what you're looking at is what you're going to get as the limited edition. So the original, I went back through and enhanced the trees a little more, and then there's some silver trees in this area here. Though the one thing at the very, very, very end again, which I had to throw in a little bit of a Keith Haring and in there, is right on top of that Purple Mountain, there is a UFO.
Yep.
So I threw it in there just as kind of like an Easter egg type thing to just put it in there. And it was one of the very last things I added. And then the little floating hearts above Bugs and Elmer on either side. So that's about the only Napoleoni, you know, things that are off the regular art that are in that piece.
That's awesome, man. Like your inspiration for this and just how you pulled it off. You know, the What's Opera Doc obviously being the most iconic animated short ever of anybody, and then you pulled that off with one of the most iconic dance couples ever. You know, and it just it was yet another one of those. Yeah, this makes too much sense. So, and it was brilliant. Your composition, how you pulled it off, was just stunning.
Cool. Yeah, man. It's again, it was one of those things that I wanted to do. You know, doing it in pen and ink is one thing, but then when you're making Elmer Fudd green like Frankenstein, it's just and it's just like this it's just a Bugs Bunny's face, man. If I could talk somebody into always painting one yellow eye, I love it. I was like, dude, I was like, that's pretty dope. And you do those things like, yeah, I came up with that.
Yeah, right. Yes, exactly. So we want to go through and show just where, Scott, I'm going to cycle through 12 through 20. And we're just going to kind of pop them up, say a few words on each as we're going through, because you've had some brilliant mashups that you've done in the past, some on shows that you and I have done together. And we just wanted to kind of showcase those as some other limiteds that are available. And, you know, obviously you've got the two, which, by the way, I promise, Scott, we're not going to go off on a rail here on the Deadpool Wolverine movie and the latest trailer that dropped, because I'm pretty sure both of us are geeking out about this, and it's about time that our childhood came to true life in a rated R film that matches the personalities of the characters. So we won't go there. But where we will go is 12 through 20. So Scott, can you bring those up on screen for me, please? And we're going to cycle through, just a couple of minutes, or not even, on each, a short thing.
Hey, don't be afraid of it. This is man, when I painted this piece, I thought for certain it was never, ever going to get the check mark. Ever. Because out of the 100% of this painting, Bugs Bunny is in 10. And you only see his fingers and a little bit of his nose and his eyes. And I thought they're never going to say yes to this, with it being the man's 100th birthday. And
right.
And I've done this piece. It did fantastic. This was the birth of my, what I do every year now with Chuck Jones. And I believe I've done sort of like a revisit where I took the print and I super enhanced it. And I want to say, I believe David Lowenstein owns that piece, where there's multiple yellow hearts, there's more trees in the background. It's super. That could be a print on its own, that piece. It's amazing.
Yes. I love this piece. And I didn't realize that this was the piece for Chuck's 100th.
Yeah, this is the very first one.
Man, there you go.
Yeah.
All right. Come on.
So,
again, yes.
Again, we're talking about the simplicity of the piece. If the background was too wild, then you'd lose the marvelness of Gossamer just right there. And the way his hands are positioned, I mean, it's like, that's just pretty much it. And then just doing Marcinivo is kind of like just inspecting the nail, and he's holding. Yes. I mean, even from the way he's sitting, like it's just the whole entire piece is amazing. And then when I painted him, I debated on trying to find the right red and everything else. And just thought was like, you know what? I'm just going to paint him using the same colors I paint all of my hearts. So then there's a combination of 4 colors, and that's where it's like a Havana brown and then 3 shades of red.
And what I love about this scene too that you picked out is you can hear it. Like, you can hear him. Oh my stars, monsters are the most interesting people. They live the most interesting lives, and I can hear him saying that stuff.
Dude, my wife goes and gets her nails done, and she's gone for 3 hours. There's no way it takes that long.
That's hilarious. All right, come on.
This, man, this is, similar to Scott asked me for Mark Anthony and the kitty, and I was like, oh man, this is so rough. How am I gonna capture them? And then I went through, and then the scene where the kitty just nestles into his skin, and if anybody if you've ever had a bulldog, mine are French. They don't have that fluffiness that these guys do. You can literally see how a kitty can do that,
Right.
And to have Marcinivo just leaning up, and in this, in this piece, I didn't see Marcinivo as the character you just saw him in the previous one. This is more like Marcinivo is like that loved toy. That's what he is. He's not Marcinivo as he walks around and does whatever. This is more like the toy, that's with them. Yeah, and then again, the contrast of the colors, the pink at the bottom, bouncing off the brown of the dog, and then with that wormwood color I can't remember, it's like a warm, not a warm gray, in the background with the flowers, and that's just
Yep.
again all contrast. It balanced the flower, you know, so the floor sticks out opposed to the walls, and
yeah, the design is well, and all like your main focus is in the middle, and I love it. Like, you did a brilliant job with this. All right, come on.
So again, I want to say, man, I want to say it was something I saw you do, and I was like, oh, I never thought of putting like this whole ear with and then I went through and then I watched and that's the same tree. So I took the tree that was in there, the way the sign is on it, and then I went back through and I painted these guys, and I laughed the entire time. Just that plunger on Bug's butt.
Oh, dude.
And
and like Rabbit Fire is one of my all-time favorite animated shorts. So like, which naturally this piece like is right in my wheelhouse, you know, for what you did, because I absolutely loved it. And just the action, the humor, the everything, it was just so brilliant. One of my all-time favorites. So when you did this and you put this out, I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, it's a great piece. This is the one. This is the one that was told you need to add Penelope to it. And I was like, where am I going to squeeze her in here? Because the heart is pretty close. And that is why if I were to paint this piece again, clearly her tail would not be cut off. You know, that in itself tells you that there was a screw up, because the heart would be about, you know, in the original would have been 2 more inches. It would have been like where that daisy is by the root. The heart would have been there, so then you would have seen her gorgeous flowing tail, and it wouldn't have fallen, you know, been cut off at the end. But it makes far more sense to be titled "The Chase Is Over" and her be in it than just the heart. So
yes,
my wife and Scott were 100% correct.
right, Duke. Oh, all right, come on. I have this piece, by the way. I had this limited.
So this is this piece. It's one of the first ones where I taped off a little bit. Like the background is solid black, and then I played around with a little bit of splatter. But I was taking. It's the oldest technique on the planet. Dip your brush in.
Yep.
So then it just gives all the single dots, opposed to when you whack it, then you could end up with a streak of it. And then I just played around with the colors and blending it so it looked like it was literally just shiny and floating in there. And I must have painted that I don't know how many times, because the blue would go into the white would go into the blue, and then I was like, all right, let me just throw some baby blue in here. Let me just throw a little bit of aqua. Let me just throw a little bit. So then once I bet you I spent more time on planet Earth than I did on anything else, because that was the one thing I'm like, this doesn't look right. It looks flat. So I just kept playing it until I got it. And then I think on some of the APs of this piece, I have painted a spaceship in the corner, some rockets. I have gone through. I've taken their skirts maybe, and done rainbows or painted their helmets black. I've done multiple things to them to change, you know, how it looks. But I love this piece.
It's awesome, dude. Like, I have it. It's awesome, and like, you just crushed it. And then of course, let's go from Marvin to Duck Dodgers.
Again, so here's Porky Pig, right? Now just imagine him dressed like Angus Young and just rocking out. It's just, look how mellow and meek, but you put a little guitar in that little pig's hand and that's it. But I've always liked the green. Again, on this piece, he stands out so much because he is the prominent character in this image. And Marcel Evo is just in between them, But yeah, he's in between them. But literally, it's just that stare and the pose and what is he conniving? What is he thinking of? And again, this piece has a Keith Haring UFO as the background on the just behind Porky Pig and Marcelino.
So, and there's two films that Porky like really jumps out to me as like the sidekick, where he's actually three, where he's more, yeah, he's a sidekick, but really like he's kind of the star of the show. And Duck Dodgers is one of those. Robin Hood Daffy is the other one.
Yes.
And it just and it would not be the same. Like the pairing of those two and how they were written is just brilliant, and it doesn't work without that. So yeah, this is awesome.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. We did the show for this one, and man,
yeah.
Holy crap.
This is one I painted, and I'm like, there's no way they're going to let me do the impression that he's going to hack him in half. So, Marcelino is wearing the exact same dress. And then the little lip, there's the little lip that hangs, there's a little witch in these, a little younger one, and her little bottom lip sticks out. That's why Marcelino's lip is sticking out a little bit like that. I had to get the shoes. I for some reason, I love them. They just remind me of like clown/bowling shoes. The same pink that's in the piece with the kitty and Mark Anthony, that's the same color. And then again, like the conversation we had, the simplicity of the background is the one thing that I saw in this short, that I saw the background was always simple, because the focus is on her beautiful face and his reaction to, like, I'm about to get cut in half. So, and the fact that the little heart's running away. That's the other.
Yes.
Little heart's like, he's hopping.
Yeah. Like I'm not in the soup. We're not. There's no rabbit stew tonight. There's no Marcelino stew. I'm out. Yes.
So yeah, and it's not many times too either that I do characters that are where they're sort of like a little bit in the air or floating, and this one there is a little bit of action to it. His foot's up in the air and the heart's just bouncing away.
I love it. And then we bookend with what we've got, which is the piece that you had mentioned earlier, and that goes along with it.
So this one is, again, go to the background. It's the clouds, the puffy Chuck Jones clouds. So I created a stencil. I freehand a couple clouds on paper, on the same paper that I used to do pen and inks, because it's so thick and firm. So I cut some clouds, multiple clouds, and then I just basically the background, clouds on top of that. And then I wanted that, it's the anger, the frustration between them both. And then with, Marcelino is like, here's a little, think about this for a second. Here's a little positive thought. And then that's where that piece just comes together. But I just love the way, like, there's no way, he's squeezing so hard, there's no way he has any neck left.
No, there isn't.
In there.
and well, that and the bulging eyes, like
that's the other one too. It's just like, so,
yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh no, it's a funny piece. These are all great. I mean, it's just funny because it's the ability, no direction whatsoever, and that's probably one of the coolest things to do with Chuck Jones is the thought is there. Hey, these characters, throw whoever you want in there, and
right,
pretty much it. If that much direction.
If that much, yes.
Yeah,
usually it's unless you're doing a 50 hairs of gray, you're probably doing okay. Well, you know what, man? I love the. I mean, unfortunately, like it was not unfortunately, it was her birthday. It was my daughter's birthday today. Otherwise, my goal was to come out by you and do this side by side, in which I'm looking forward to doing, on the next one. But it's always a pleasure, and because like not only you're a good friend, you're extremely creative. We just nerd out on all this stuff, and you produce like just some amazing pieces that bring such joy and happiness to people. And all, every time, I'm out, whether I'm out at, in California, we're out at another show, we're doing whatever, and everybody brings up, the work that you've done and like what piece they collected and whether it's limited, and stuff like that. And there's such a strong connection to what you do and then to what people grab onto. And I just highly appreciate that. So it's been an honor and a pleasure tonight. Do you have parting words for the audience?
I do. One thing I've like focused on over the last couple of years as I've gotten older and just experienced more things that it's not really art-based, but you happen to be frustrated at the circumstances that the world is in, that we're in. Be grateful that we're just surrounded by people that love us, and like you and I having this great conversation, and it's just focus on that. Focus on more on the positive things. We're here, not here forever, and then just enjoy it. Just enjoy those moments.
Yeah.
Whether it be just 5 minutes before you go to bed playing a video game, or listening to good music, or sneaking off a piece of candy or something. Just enjoy those moments.
Yes, I agree. Absolutely. Yeah. I'll say one more time, it's been clearly you don't work with a group this long, for 15, 16 years without there being like that whole symbiotic relationship to it. And, kudos to you guys, kudos to you, kudos to Chuck Jones and the people with the Chuck Jones galleries for, continuing this relationship and just watching all the wonderful pieces and that collaboration that comes out with it. And then we get to sit here and do this fun stuff, and they let us drink whatever we're drinking, talk about whatever we want to. And, maybe text us a little bit to be like, could you get back to the thing? Yeah, we'll get to that.
Well, you kind of have to. You can't blame Scott. It's like, for real, you guys, this isn't if you wanted to do this, you could just get together on Saturday.
Yes, right. Yes, exactly. Oh man. So I'll say that there's contact your consultant. If there's, I'm pretty sure like everything's gone, all the originals. There might be like one left or something.
So we'll throw this out. It's who's watching, and I'm sure we'll promote this, that you and I will be doing something together for certain, for Comic-Con.
Yes.
And I will be out in California during that week. I will throw out, I think Scott has asked me to do Saturday. As the details, as we iron things out, we'll mention that out, but I will be physically in California, in San Diego. That's 28th, maybe. I can't. It's later in the month this year. So, but I'll be out, and maybe we'll cross paths. We'll be there at the same time, and God help for that.
I don't know if they're ready for it, but you know what? That's not our fault. So things are just going to happen.
Very true. Very true. Very true.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, hey, buddy, pleasure as always. And thank you for coming on and doing this. Thank you for, creating everything that you've done. I love it. I get inspired off of it. And I'm looking forward to the next hangout time, just off camera, whenever that may be. So with that, I will say good night, everyone. Thank you for another wonderful Creative Side Chat, and love you guys. Catch you next time.
Appreciate you, brother. Take care.
All right. You too, buddy. Thank you.
See ya.
Bye-bye.